Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Hester and Lark knitting podcast. My name is Lily and I like to knit and I like to talk about my knitting. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been a long time since I did an episode, I think probably like 6 weeks. But life's been busy, so it hasn't happened. But it does mean that I have lots and lots of things to talk to you about, so that's exciting. I'm just going to do what we always do, so finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, and then I do a little chat about anything that I've watched or read that I think somebody else might enjoy, or I want to have a little like flail about and have some people join me, so that's always fun. Just a heads up, I went on holiday, so I bought yarn, so there are quite a few acquisitions like scattered through the podcast because I've used some things. So if that's not your jam, that's totally fine. Feel free to skip. So we'll start with our finished objects, and I have one really to show you, and that is what I'm wearing, which is my finished storm sweater. This is a pattern by Petite knit. I used Gynt from Sandnes Garn, which is the recommended yarn, in the colour Night Sky, which is this really beautiful, I don't know if the camera's going to get it because it never seems to, but like almost black navy. And I love it, and I knit this in a size 4, which is in Petite knits older patterns a size 3 because she's added an extra small, so a medium size. And I am so happy with it, which is good because it took a lot of yarn and a lot of time, so I'm pleased that I really like it. I knit it almost exactly to pattern. I got gauged perfectly with a needle size up from the pattern, so I used a 4.5mm needle. And the only two things that I changed were at the bottom of the garment I added an extra pattern repeat to make the jumper a little bit longer. On my height, the width for the size that I needed, it just didn't look right. Like the proportions of the jumper just looked a bit squashed and square without an extra repeat, and I also knew that I wanted to wear this as like a really oversized garment with kind of like wide leg trousers or a skirt, and I kind of wanted that sort of like baggy boxy look. I also wanted to be able to put like 7,000 layers underneath it because I'm a cold-bodied human and I like to be able to layer efficiently. So it is big on me, but also I am somewhat of a, is it pear shape? I've got wide hips, y'all, and so actually this is not only just, but it's like just about wide enough for my hips, so that it doesn't pull tightly across those. So yes, big up here, but not so big down here, and I'll try and put a picture in from my Instagram, cheeky plug, so you can see kind of how it fits on me with a little bit extra length, and also I am roughly 5'4", so not super tall. So yes, I changed that in that I added a little bit extra length, and I also only went down half a needle size on the ribbing for the body because I really didn't want it to cinch in. Again, not flattering on my body shape. I wanted it almost to be straight, but just with a bit of structure at the bottom. And the other thing that I did, and I did this on the sleeves as well, is I did a sewn bind off, but I didn't do, if I put this here, will you be able to see? I didn't do 2 rows of double knitting before the bind off because quite frankly I'm lazy, and also I don't think it makes that much of a difference, especially in a really dark yarn. I think if I'd used like a cream or like a light blue or just a light colour, you would have seen that difference more. But on this colour, like I think it's not noticeable, and it wasn't worth the effort. And the fact that I probably would have just done the ribbing on a sleeve or on a body and gone, I don't want to do the double knitting, and just left it for months, and I really wanted to finish it. So I decided that that was the compromise I was prepared to make so that I would finish the garment. What else did I want to say? I want to say something about the yarn. The Gynt, I did a swatch and it worked really well, and I blocked it and it was exactly right. I do think that my post blocked gauge is slightly bigger than the swatch was, and I think that's just because this is a heavy wool, so it's 100% Norwegian wool, and it is weighty, and I think the weight of the jumper, even though I blocked it flat, I've dried it flat even, has definitely stretched the gauge out a little bit, but I don't think it's anything, it's not making it look kind of like unshapely. I think that's just the nature of the wool, and actually it's given it a really lovely like swish and drape that I really wasn't anticipating. When I was knitting it, it felt really quite like crunchy and stiff, and that was fine too, but the way it's blocked out is really lovely. And also, as I just mentioned, I went on holiday and I wore this basically every day. Every time we went out, I think I wore this because it was cold, and it still looks lovely. Like there's a little bit of a fuzz on the sleeves where I've like wedged them into a coat, but actually like it's not pilling, it's not catching, it just looks lovely. It looks like I finished it and picked it up off the blocking mat a second ago, and it's still beautiful. So I'm very happy with the Peer Gynt, and I would absolutely make a garment out of it again. It's a little bit scratchy, but only on my neck. Like everywhere else I can kind of handle it, especially once it's been on for 5 minutes. When I put it on, I'm a bit like, oh, it's a bit itchy, but actually if I just stick it out, it's fine. But around the neck is maybe a little bit scratchy for me, but absolutely livable with. And I have worn it without, it's cold today, so I've put this on, but I have worn it without like a turtleneck, and it is fine. It's just that sort of initial prickle. So if you were like super sensitive, maybe not for like next to skin wearing, but actually I would class myself as like middlingly sensitive, and it's okay. I think that's everything I wanted to say about this. I'm so pleased with it. I'm so proud of it. It works so well. I'm so pleased with my colour choice. I was really worried you wouldn't be able to see the pattern, but you can. And it fits so well into my wardrobe, which is what I really wanted. I have this horrible habit of like really loving colours that don't go with anything else that I own or don't really suit me, but I know this looks nice on me and I know it goes with my clothes, and it's getting a lot of wear and it really shows. So I'm trying to in the future maybe be a bit more careful about colours and things like that, and not just, you know, being like a little magpie and just picking the shiny. So that is my Storm sweater by Petite Knit. Very happy with it. Let's move on, because I think this has been in like 5 episodes or something ridiculous like that. So I just wanted to give like an honourable mention to the baby items that I had in my previous podcast. They are finished, they have been sent to their recipient. I have received a gorgeous little photo back of a small human who is so small that the newborn size clothes that I made her are too big, but still like wrapped up in the little cardie that I made her. It's absolutely giant on her. It's quite cute because I mean, aren't babies gorgeous? And it's nice to know that even though I made a small size, it's actually getting some use. Her mum sent me a message saying, this is the smallest thing we have for her and it's still massive. So I know she's going to get a little bit of wear out of it. So that's really nice. But those are done. But I obviously don't have them to show you because they have off to their home, all wrapped up with little care labels on of like how to wash and things like that. So that's fine. So those are my finished objects. Considering that I think I haven't spoken to you guys for 6 weeks, that's not that much, but I don't think I'd done the sleeves on this yet, so, you know. Let's jump into my works in progress, because I feel like that's the most interesting bit really, isn't it? So I'm going to show you my Lakes pullover. This is a pattern by Roswitha, and I think I'm knitting the 4th size, but I could also have done the 5th size. I'm not sure. And if you just heard a little ding 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 noise, that was my cat's automatic feeder feeding him, so he's happy. Sorry, I got distracted. So my Lakes sweater by Roswitha, Lakes pullover even. So I am knitting, like I said, either the 4th or the 5th size. At this point, it doesn't really matter, but I can't remember. I'm sure I could work it out maybe, but meh. And I am knitting this in a little combo of yarns that is proving to be very beautiful. So I am using the British 4-ply from Woolly Knit in the colour Harvest, held double, alongside a strand of Drops Kid Silk Mohair in what I think is the colour Almond, but the description box will have all of it, like the colour codes for everything. Almond, and then that is held with a strand of Rico's Make It Tweed, which I think might be my favourite thing that has ever come into existence. And that is resulting in, let me find the top and the front. Oh, there's so much rubbish everywhere. In so this is my Lakes pullover. So I have finished the body and I have done the neckline, which always makes everything look so much better, doesn't it? Like, it just looks, works in progress just always look horrible and ratty if they have a picked up neckline until you have done the neck, and then they suddenly look like a garment that's actually wearable. Because until then, this was so huge and open and just looked terrifying. So this is a lovely saddle shoulder construction. And then it's got some lovely short row shaping at the top and on the back, and then a lovely straight body, some just very dull 1x1 ribbing at the bottom. And again, I just did a sewn bind off. I didn't do 2 rows of double knit first. I really don't think it's worth the effort. Having done it on other things, I don't think it's worth the effort. And now I'm on to a sleeve. And this also, so you can see, you pick up round the sides, and then you put your held stitches from your saddle back on, and then you have a nice little short row sleeve cap, which I've never done before, and I've definitely never done on a garment that, like a drop shoulder garment, where I would normally be used to just picking the shoulder up, the sleeve up, and just going straight from the shoulder. But I think it's going to give it a lovely shape across there. And then I'm just now doing my stockinette tube with some decreases in for a sleeve. So hopefully that shouldn't take me too long. And also I don't have to, the last few jumpers I've done, I've had to like go back and finish the body at the end. And this, the body is done. So once I've done the sleeves, it's finished. I just have to wash and block it. And I'm so excited to block this, because at the moment you can see the ribbing's kind of like a bit like, I don't know, it always looks a bit ganky, doesn't it, until you've blocked it and straightened it out. And this pattern doesn't specify that you change needles for your ribbing. It just says keep going. And so I think I'm gonna be able to block this out really nice and square. And I think that's going to look lovely. The pattern is so well written, it's really easy to follow. It's got really helpful diagrams for picking up on the saddle shoulders, because I've never done a saddle shoulder before. It's got really helpful diagrams for picking up. I found that the pickup rates that it gives and the stitch counts are really reliable. I've managed to, despite my row gauge being a bit funky, I still managed to pick stitches up properly, and I've managed to, I think, do a really nice job getting really clean edges on my like sleeve pickups and my, well, that's this side, sorry, giving like my saddle pickup and my sleeve pickup. I think I've managed to do a really nice job, so I'm pleased with myself about that. And yeah, I just think it's going to be a really lovely like classic jumper. It's got a nice big like chunky double folded neck. And yeah, again, I think this colour, the little flecks make it a bit fun and a bit out there for me colour wise. Most of the things in my wardrobe are really boring. But the base colour, the Harvest, firstly, I think suits me really well. Very flattering. But also goes very well with lots of things that I own. So should sort of slot into my winter wardrobe quite nicely. I do think this is going to be so warm. Like it's quite a dense gauge with the, what's the word I'm looking for? With the yarns that I've chosen, because of the 2 strands and the recoat and the mohair. It's quite dense fabric, which is nice. It's not, that's not a bad thing, but I do think it's going to make the garment really warm, especially with the mohair. But very excited to finish this. This is absolutely on my like, oh sorry, that was horrible. This is absolutely on my get it done list now. I got a bit distracted by my next whip, which I'll show you in a second, but yes, I really want to get this finished because I love the fabric so much. I just want to wear it. Was there anything else I wanted to say about this? No, that was everything. So that is my Lakes pullover. And absolutely would make more patterns by this designer. I think it's been really nicely written, very clear, even though it's got some kind of intricate moments. So that's that. My next whip is one that I kind of mentioned in the last episode, because I showed you the mini skein set that I got from Loom, which is who's Jess, and I said, oh, I'm thinking about doing a XYZ by Penrose. And lo and behold, the Stella quilt cushion pattern came out and I couldn't resist. So this is my Stella quilt cushion pattern by Penrose, who used to be Penrose Knits. So far I have done the whole of the first row and then the first 2 squares of my second row. And this is such a gratifying pattern. Oh my gosh, each square you knit using short rows and pickups. There's no sewing anything together. I have obviously not sewn any of my ends in, but you could do it as you go if you were sensible. And so this will end up being a 4x4 square with like a little star in the middle. I am using my Loom October mini skein set for this square, but I needed a few extra colours. So locally to me is Lambington Lass, who is a yarn dyer, and she goes to a market in my town I think it's like every 4 weeks, every 2 weeks, and it is literally always when I am working. I have never been able to go. It's on a Saturday and I just seem to be cursed to work all the Saturdays that she's there, which is a real shame. But I found her on Etsy and I ordered a few extra mini skeins that I thought would go with the colours that I had, just to kind of like give the set a bit of little extra twist and a bit of warmth. And so I ordered these colours, sorry, I'll go back. So these colours are the ones from the Loom October, so like a really nice, these are ones I've already used, or I haven't used this one yet, but I've used this one, and this one's the next one to go, and then these 3 I'm gonna wind up in there in the top 8 squares. And it's a lovely, as you can see, like earthy greeny palette, and I thought it just needed some kind of like a little colour opposition oomph. So I ordered these 2 pinks from Lambington Lass, which I think is, this one is coral and I think this one is sandstone. And then to kind of like just be a little extra neutral tone, this grey, and I can't remember the name of this, but I'll try and write it in the description, and that's the one that I've done 2 squares of already, so you'll have seen that one. So that's kind of like a really nice, if I can try and hold them up all together, but I just don't think it's going to work. No, I'm dropping everything. There's some colours missing, but you get the idea. A really nice sort of like earthy palette, but with just a few, like a little bit of warmth to kind of elevate the green, and also for a bit of contrast just to help it pop. And then the cream colour is Drops Lima in off-white, I think. Again, look at the description, all of the colour names and codes will be there. And I thought that was nice to not use like a total white, especially as in lots of the Loom colours, I think the base yarn is cream, so there's like little creamy flecks in some of the like tonal speckle colours. So that's that. I am slightly off gauge in an interesting direction for me, in that my gauge is bigger than the designer's, which very infrequently happens. But I think, and I was thinking this before I made it, that what I really want to do is make a few of these and sew them into a quilt or a blanket rather than using them as a cushion cover, because I think, well, first of all, I have about 6 million cushions and I don't need any more covers. And also I just think a wool blanket is so nice, and I've really wanted to knit a nice blanket for a long time, and I love quilts, and this was just perfect. I do think that Laura, the designer, is going to bring out a quilt version, but she was talking about it in her podcast, and she said there's going to be a way in the pattern for you to do it seamlessly, where every single square you can just join it onto the previous one, but also that she was going to just have some squares as options, and then you could then sew them together. And I think in order for this project to feel like portable and manageable, I will just do squares at a time and then seam them. And you can see the squares, here we go, all garter stitch, really squishy and lovely, have a really nice slip stitch edge, which also makes picking up for your next square really easy, but it also makes sewing it all together at the end really easy, because where you're going to sew is really well defined. I mean, if it was garter stitch with no slip stitch edge, I might have thought twice about that, because I'm not the best at reading garter stitch. I find it much trickier, and I really have to like, oh, that's one stitch going that way and that's one stitch, and I find it really hard. So I'm very happy with my decision, and it's not so much too big that if I change my mind I can't turn it into a cushion cover. I think I would just do it with a fabric back rather than a knitted one, so that the backing didn't have stretch, so that all of the extra slack in the front is taken up by the back not being stretchy. Did that make any sense? It made sense in my brain, but I don't think I explained it very well. Anyway, I don't think it's going to be cushions. I think it's going to slowly one day be a blanket, but it's so moreish. Like, it's such a, I was just one more, just another half, just another one. And I think each square, I'm getting quicker now because I kind of got the sense of how it works. And I think each square is taking me about sort of 45 minutes to an hour. But I think I'll probably speed up now that I've sort of mentally got a handle on how it works, because I think sometimes when you've not got a handle on how it works, you have to think through each direction so many times to understand why you're being asked to do something, or at least I do. I'm not very good at just like blindly following instructions if I don't understand what it's going to do. So now I've sort of like got a physical representation of the instructions, it's much easier for me. And I will also say that the pattern is so well written, so helpful. Like, it's complicated and there's lots of picking things up, but it's, once again, the lovely slip stitch edge makes it really easy. It's very clearly written. There's lots of diagrams to help you. Like, I think it's very well done, and I would be very happy to recommend it to people that were concerned about like the picking up and knitting lots of different directions and stuff. I actually think it's really simple and really well done. I would also advise you to sew your ends in as you go, unlike me, who's going to have about 6 million ends to sew in for every square. But never mind, she's done it now. What can we say? I think that's everything I wanted to say about that. Yes, lovely pattern, enjoy. Right, my final whip is a sad situation. I posted a picture of this on my Instagram, so you might have seen it already, but for my holiday I wanted, I'm just going to move this out, oh hang on, lots of things in the way. For my holiday I wanted a holiday project, and I have been slightly obsessed with the Celeste sweater by Petite since she started like teasing it on her Instagram however long ago, because I really enjoy colour work. It looked like a really nice simple colour work pattern as well, like nothing too difficult to remember, just like 1s and 2s of each colour. So a really nice, like gratifying knit. I was doing a storm sweater and I was like, yeah, no, lovely, beautiful. And so I treated myself to some yarn for it for my holiday. And I am using Drops yarn because the majority of this jumper is in Drops Lima, which is currently part of the Drops alpaca sale. So on Wool Warehouse in the UK, I think is either £1.60 or £1.70 a skein, depending on whether it's the solid colour or the like heathered colours, which is just ludicrously inexpensive and meant that an entire sweater's worth of yarn for me, plus a little bit extra, was about £25. And the only thing I did slightly differently from the pattern is I am doing the neck not in Drops Nepal, Drops Lima even, sorry. I'm doing the neck in Drops Daisy, which is their newest, Drops' newest yarn, which is a non-superwash merino DK weight, aka their version of Sunday by Sandnes Garn, because I have used Drops Lima in the past and it's a teensy little bit itchy for me to have like a big long neck. So I thought, well, roughly the same gauge, do the neck in this. And then I was really inspired by a Celeste sweater that I saw on Instagram where the neck was a different colour to the body. So that was what I was going to do. It's like neck in this, and then these are my colour work colours, I will have all of the codes for the colour codes in the description, but I think it's like dark brown, brown mix, brick, can't remember what that one is, and then off-white. And then the body of the jumper is going to be in this colour. So I actually got quite far. So I did my ribbing, and I've gotten 2/3 of the way through the colour work. You might be thinking, oh, that looks a bit small. Yes, friends, it does. Because this is supposed to be a 20 stitch gauge, and what have I got? I think 26 to 27 stitches per 4 inches. So I am quite spectacularly out, and also so out that I can't fix it. So out this is all going to come. I'm going to rip back to the bottom of the ribbing because this is fine. This will absolutely fit over my head. No problem. That's going to be not an issue. This, not in any way big enough for me. And I thought, oh, I could just work out like a little bit more colour work patterning and like just make the yoke a bit, oh, it's like, no, like the effort that would be, just rip it out and redo it on some bigger needles. So I got smug, friends. I didn't do a gauge swatch. I just went, oh, I'm petite knit. I normally just need to go up a needle size and then it'll be fine. So I did that, and that is not sufficient. So I think the recommended needle is a 4 and a 4.5, and I think I'm gonna need to use a 5.5 or even a 6 to get gauge, which is just mad. And I'm a bit worried that I'm not gonna like that gauge very much, but we'll find out when we get there. Will I do a gauge swatch once I've ripped it out? I might not, because I might be too cross. But that's okay. I had a lovely time knitting this. I really like my colour palette, actually. I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks lovely. I think it's going to really suit me. I think I made the right decision to not have this cream colour on the rest of the body. I think that would be a bit, it's just not very my style. And I think that this will be nice and neutral underneath. So I'm a bit sad because this was a little bit of work, but actually not as much work as you would think, because it is such a simple colour work pattern. It would be such a perfect first colour work project for somebody, because I think the longest float you have to do is 3 stitches. It's so easy to memorize each row. It's really simple, it's really clear. The increases are really easy to do for your circular yoke. It's lovely. It's a really nice pattern, and I think makes a kind of modern take on a classic. So this is going to get ripped out. Very sad about that, but I had fun doing it. I've learnt my lesson, or have I? Because I might go home, not home, I might rip this out and still not swatch. I think I'm just going to be really careful about how I rip it out, because there was an increase round at the end of the ribbing and I want to keep that. So we'll have to do that very carefully and slowly. I'll figure that out when I get there. But yeah, that's my Celeste sweater. Hopefully, I think it only took me like 4 hours to do this. So I'm not going to have any more stitches the next time. I'll just be doing it on bigger needles. So hopefully it takes another 4 hours, and I really enjoyed doing it. So I'm sure I will enjoy it again. But yeah, I think I'm a little bit gutted that I've cut all these ends, and I think some of the yarn I'm not going to be able to reuse, but some of it I will. And I think I'm going to have plenty of my colours to, even if I didn't use any of this yarn again, I think I would still have enough for the yoke. But that's a bit irritating. I think that's the only thing that I'm like mostly sad about, is wasting the yarn. That's, oh well, never mind. We bravely soldier on. So yeah, that was my Celeste sweater, and will be my Celeste sweater again, but not anytime soon, except I might just be so frustrated and bored that I just rip it out and get on with it. And I got tangled. How have I gotten tangled? This is ridiculous. There we go. There's a lot of yarn on this desk right now, guys. A lot of yarn on this desk. So that was my Celeste sweater, will be my Celeste sweater, but it's going to need a little bit of revision first. So those are all of my whips at the moment, I think. Yeah. Perfect. So, I mean, not including the 6 million things that I've like half done and haven't touched for a while. Active whips, these guys. So I'm just going to move on swiftly to my acquisitions. Like I said, I went on holiday, so I did buy a few things, and plus you've seen the Celeste sweater yarn, I bought that, and I also bought the extra skeins for the Stella quilt cushion, so it is a bit of a spendy 6 weeks. It's Christmas. Can I justify it like that? Probably not, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to have a little mouthful of liquid. Thank you very much. Okay, so I went on holiday, went to a few different cities in Europe. One of the places I went to was in Hamburg in Germany. Went to the Christmas market, very kitsch, full of tourists, really cute, really sparkly. And while we were wandering around, my friend and I stumbled into what I'm assuming is like the German equivalent of Hobbycraft, except it was about 6 million times better. And also it had a huge yarn selection, which was mostly Rico yarns. I got really excited because I thought they had some more Make It Tweed. They did not. I probably would have bought out the shop's selection if they had, because I love it and I think it's so versatile, but they didn't. But I really wanted to get something small, and I thought about getting some silk mohair, and I was like, oh, you're just buying it for the sake of buying it. And then I found the little sock section, and they had quite a lot of DK sock yarn. So they had some regular sock yarn in DK, or like their 6-ply, and they also had this yarn, which I'm gonna butcher, so I'm really sorry if you're German, but Strumpfwool, which is a DK sock yarn. It's kind of like a rainbowy fade, and I bought 2 skeins of that to make a pair of chunky socks for myself at some point in the future, and those were 95 meters each. If it's not quite enough for a pair, I'll hold another yarn with it and make some really chunky socks, but I thought those were cute and fun. And I'm pretty sure I've made some DK weight socks before, and it was about a ball a sock. I don't know. I bought 2. That's what I did. I bought 2, and I think they were about €5 a skein, so 10-ish euros. And I had a lovely time touching all the lovely soft Rico yarns. They had the like colour changing mohair, which is like €50 a skein. It's quite a lot of mohair, but it's still, and loads of like the really like fab colours and stuff. So I really enjoyed it in there, and it was nice to go inside for a bit because outside was quite cold. Not as cold as it had been. I was quite lucky in that it was above freezing, but those were my little like German souvenir. I resisted the temptation to buy Christmas tat, so that's what I bought instead. And then one of the other places that I went was Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam there is Stephen and Penelope, which is Stephen West's and Penelope something or other, I don't know her name, it's so bad, isn't it, shop. And it is basically a pilgrimage site for people that love hand-dyed yarn. It was the most beautiful shop I have ever been in. I went with my friend, and bless her, she was so tolerant of me standing in there for about 45 minutes just going, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to look at, don't know what to touch, don't know what to get. There's just so much in here. It was beautiful. It was also quite expensive because hand-dyed yarns are quite expensive. So most things were running like 30 to 40 euros a skein, which is too much money for me. And also for me, hand-dyed yarn is not really something that I use for garments for myself because it's not really my style, and I do think that people make absolutely incredible things out of all of those like beautiful variegated colours and speckles and stuff. It's just not very me, and so I didn't want to spend €40 on a skein of yarn that realistically the only thing I would use it for was socks, because it's too beautiful to be socks and a bit too expensive for me for socks. And I also have some lovely speckly hand-dyed skeins where I've made one sock and never made the second one. So at some point in my life, I will have some lovely hand-dyed speckly socks, but just I didn't want to buy more yarn in order to do that. But it was such, oh my god, it was so lovely to be in there. And the people that work in there, I mean, I speak no Dutch. They all spoke beautiful English, and we all had lovely conversations about knitting and what we were making. I was wearing my April cardigan, which they asked like what the pattern was and what the yarn was, and they said it was really lovely, and so I felt very smug and also like a bit overwhelmed. It was just a lovely place to go, and it's in a beautiful bit of Amsterdam, so you know, you're not having to like go out to the sticks and there's nothing else there. Like, it's really close to the train station. Anyway, if you're going to Amsterdam and you like to knit, I think you should go, even if you don't buy anything. And also I think that the people that work in there really wouldn't care if you went in for 20 minutes and didn't buy anything. I think you could have a lovely chat with them and that would be enough. I don't think that they're not going to hound you to buy anything, basically, or make you feel guilty for not buying anything. But I did want to buy something. All that said. But like I said, I didn't feel that the many gorgeous, beautiful, oh my gosh, I want my house to look like the inside of that shop, were really the right thing for me to purchase. So what I did get is something that I've not brought here, which is annoying, but one of those tape measures that like rolls back into like a little case, and that says Stephen and Penelope on it, and that was €3, and I was like, perfect, that's a lovely little souvenir, and it will just be in my knitting bag always, and every time I use it I will think, oh, Stephen and Penelope, it was so beautiful. The other thing that I got was a little set of tags to sew into things that I make for other people, and it just says, I'm loved, someone made this for me by hand. And I think that's really cute because most of the things that I make for people are for children. Big people, like, stuff takes too long. But I thought that would be a nice thing to sew into things for small people. Probably not on the back of the neck because I know that's really itchy, but like on the side. And it also has a little hand wash and lay flat to dry symbol on the other side. And I think those were €5, and I think you get 5. So €1 a tag. I thought that was fine. I also bought, have I got them here? I also bought some fun buttons. They didn't have a huge selection, but the shop next door was like a button emporium. So if you really like buttons, go next door. But these were €1 for 4, and they're like little snaps rather than buttons. So let me unsnap one. There you go. So they're like little floral purple snaps, and so they then popper or snap depending on where you are in the world. I would call them a popper, but I think Americans call them snaps. And again, I thought for at some point for a small human being, those would be really nice. And there's lots of holes around the edge for you to sew them down really securely. And poppers are quite fun. And also then you don't have to do buttonholes. And I don't like buttonholes very much. Just the thing with the reason I don't like buttonholes is you have to plan better as to where they're going. Whereas snaps, you can just sew them on wherever at the end. So I bought €1 worth of snaps. I probably should have bought €2 worth really, but never mind. And then the wool or the yarn that I decided to buy was the West Wool fingering yarn, which is called Bicycle, because I figured I can't buy this anywhere else. This is like this shop's in-house yarn. It comes in lovely colours. They're 50-gram skeins, and I think they were €12 a skein. And I picked out 4 colours that I really liked that I thought were like quite fun together, and I think these will go into at some point the quilt of Stella blocks that I'm going to make. So I got these 4 colours here. So you can see this is pretty much my palette, these 3 with like a little pop of hot pink. Well, not even hot pink, like a muted hot pink. And they say they're fingering, but I think they're almost like a heavy fingering to a light sport weight, because the meterage, let me see, is 175 meters for 50 grams. So it doesn't quite get you to 400 meters in 100 grams, which is what I would say a fingering weight normally is. So it's like a heavy fingering to a light sport, and at some point we'll go into some kind of Stella something or other, or something stripy for a small human that's very worthy, because obviously I'm not going to make enough for me out of those 4. But I was very pleased with that little colour palette, and I feel like I picked bright, fun colours because the shop was bright and fun, and yeah, and it wasn't like it didn't break the bank too much, and I really wanted to get something because I was having such a lovely holiday with my friend, and we'd had such a lovely day in Amsterdam. This was the Stephen and Penelope was basically the last place we went before we went home, and I just wanted something, and this seemed like the best idea, rather than like a €40 skein of like beautiful yarn that will probably never get used. It will just sit in a skein forever and ever because I don't make anything with that kind of yarn. And one day I might, but then when that day happens, I can buy some yarn for it. So that was my acquisitions. So quite a bit this month, but sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Never mind. So that's all of my knitting related content. Just a little note on what I've been watching. It's been really dark and miserable and gloomy here, and whenever it's like that, I just want to, I mean, I'm a kind of like a hibernating human being anyway, but I just want to like curl into a tiny ball and just knit on the sofa with my cat in the dark. And what goes better with curling in a ball and knitting in the dark? A cup of tea, and also period dramas, because I grew up like obsessed with them, and so they are like my happy place. So on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer, they had all of Little Dorrit, and I'd only watched that once. I'd only watched it when it was on TV, and I couldn't really remember it, so I rewatched all of that, and that was fantastic. So that is an adaptation of a Charles Dickens novel. It's got Claire Foy as the like main female lead, and Matthew McFadden as the main male lead, but like an absolute like cast of the best and the brightest of British acting, as BBC period dramas often are. And it's so good. The story is fantastic, the sets are beautiful, it's done in the same style as Bleak House, in that it's done in little half-hour episodes, which is supposed to mimic the way Charles Dickens wrote for like serial magazines. So you would get a chapter and then you would have to wait a week and you would get another chapter, or like another 3 chapters, or however it worked. So they designed these TV shows to kind of mimic that. So you get an hour-long episode at the beginning and then like lots and lots and lots of half-hour episodes. So it's quite a good evening watch, because you don't have to commit yourself to a lot, though I mean I often do anyway. So I really enjoyed that, and I was really pleased that I decided to rewatch it. I think it's also set in like the 1830s, so the fashion is wild. It's like moving away from Regency into those like huge puffy sleeves and like silly hair, and like moving into more of a what you would think of as a Victorian silhouette, but like that middle ground, mad and really fun. And all of the actors are clearly having a lovely time, and I couldn't remember really anything about it, and so it was basically like watching something brand new, and I really enjoyed it. So a strong recommend for that. And then the other thing that I have watched, which I started when I was on holiday and came home and promptly finished it all, was The Gilded Age, which is essentially Julian Fellowes' American version of Downton Abbey, except has so much more money. Like, it's ridiculous. It's made by HBO. Like, you can tell that the budget is absolutely ridiculous. The costumes are beautiful. It suffers most of the same problems of Downton Abbey, in that the plot tells you, not the plot, the script tells you exactly what to think. There's no subtext, nothing, everything is on the surface. But all of the actors are doing such an awesome job, and it just looks beautiful, and sometimes you just want an easy watch. I don't think there's really anything very complicated going on that you have to kind of figure out for yourself. Julian Fellowes is not very good at subtext. But that doesn't matter because I still have really enjoyed it, and I now need to figure out how to watch the second series in the UK, because I don't know, and I would like to, because I think it is on now or it's just finishing, but I really want to know what happens. I want to know what happens next. I need to know. That's the summary, is I need to know. But beautiful costumes, excellent acting, script probably leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's also kind of a bit of history that I don't really know that much about, because it's set in the States and my knowledge of like turn of the century American history is quite poor. So that's quite fun. But it has lots of the same themes as kind of stuff that you would see in the UK set there. It was like, you know, new money and the changes that technology bring in society, and like women's suffrage and things like that. So again, nothing subtle, nothing gentle. It's all thwacking you over the head with what it wants you to think about things and what its themes are. But I don't care. I'm having a lovely time. And I'm sure at some point somebody's going to fall in love with someone really inappropriate and it's going to be drama. The only thing I'll say, if you really like Downton Abbey, there's way less downstairs than there is in Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey is a pretty even split between upstairs and downstairs. This is like mostly upstairs with a tiny bit of downstairs just to like keep you interested, but like not really that much. But yeah, if you like a period drama, I would recommend it. It's very silly and looks beautiful, and what else do you need? So I'm going to wrap this up here because I feel like I've repeated myself so much in the last 2 minutes. But this was episode 7, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to try and be a little bit more consistent in the new year. I'm going to try and like map out in my diary when I'm going to try and film episodes. It's just my work schedule is never consistent ever, so it's quite hard sometimes, and you don't always know, you know, how you're going to feel on a given day. Sometimes I don't really have the energy to do this, so but I would like to do it more regularly because I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy talking to all of you and reading your comments and replying and generally trying to like talk to people about the thing that I love to do. So that's my plan for the new year. So hopefully I will see you sooner than 6 weeks. That's the goal. Alright, I'm gonna sign out now. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.